Today is the first day of the February 1987 7-day retreat. A few things were left out yesterday in the opening talk. I will say them now. Most people know, but there are always some people who have not been to a retreat here before. You may face whichever way or direction you wish on the mat, and can change that from one round to another. Also, you can bring a chair in at any time. When you do bring a chair in, don't set it on the mats, but bring some carpet strips, roll the mat up in front of you. There are some carpet strips to protect this very soft floor. For a talk, please do anything to find a comfortable, non-problematic position on a chair, bench, cushions. Also, during a talk, I don't use the balance chair. It is available. Anybody who wants to use it, I don't know where it's being put, someplace in the back, outside in the hall. Yeah, it's right next to the door. So please take it. And during the regular retreat, I only use this chair the round before the talk and a few minutes before each block of meeting sittings. After that, you can sit on this chair here. Don't have to move it, you can sit right on this mat. Again, turning the chair whichever way you wish. We also didn't say anything about walking, which takes place between rounds of sitting. Sometimes people have said to me, "You say you have abandoned all rituals, why have you kept that one?" It is not kept as a ritual. If it is a ritual for oneself, one has to look at it, question it, examine it. After 32 or whatever amount of time we sit, it's nice to get up and walk. It's good for the body, for the limbs, the back, the arms. But you don't have to participate in it if you don't want to walk. If you wish to continue sitting, that is up to you. You can sit in the dining room or go downstairs, take a breath of fresh air out the front door there in the reception area. It does look strange if someone has never participated in a retreat, is walking in single file, is reminiscent of monastic practices down to the Middle Ages. Why does one have to remember or evoke reminiscences? Well, one doesn't do it willingly, it happens. Can one see that? This reminds me of that, and then being stuck with that and the reactions to what it reminds me of. To see that process of the human computer. There can be walking, moving, without remembrance. without doing it because this is what is being done, which is what I'm supposed to do or which may be good for me. Feel whether it's good. Some people are sitting down. Maybe it's not good for them. I once read a famous philosopher who said, what makes us human is that we can say, this reminds me of that, this is like that. That's true, that's what the brain is capable of doing. Nothing to be proud of or angry at, but to see. If I say, you remind me of so-and-so, then so-and-so is very much in my mind, his or her habits and ways of being, how he or she was related to me, or not related to me. And unless there is awareness shed on this process, I will react to you as to the person you remind me of, including what you remind me of in our past relationship. And what is triggered is not just clean memory images, but all the emotions and feelings that are connected with memory. Actually, the memory image may already have disappeared, not even been caught by awareness, but the feelings are there. One wonders why all of a sudden one feels the way one does. And if it isn't pleasant, how can I get rid of it or ignore it, fight it, overcome it? Rather than allowing what has been aroused to take its natural physical organismic course and come to a balance again. Nothing that has been aroused will come to a balance if we get aroused about the arousal. And there's a constant avalanching of feelings, emotions, sensations, thoughts. This is all palpably observable within oneself if one is interested to listen and look and feel. Now coming to a talk itself, which takes place once a day. I think we mentioned yesterday that you do not have to come to the talk if you do not wish to attend. If you do attend, how does one come to a talk? What is the state of the mind? Can one look as one sits? There are always a few seconds or minutes of quiet before the talk starts. As the mind in the state of expectancy, what one would like to hear, what one would like to happen, wanting something. Can that be felt, seen, listened to? The very fact, the very state of expecting, the state of wanting something, wanting to hear something, wanting to listen to something. And if there's awareness of that, can there just be the openness of listening, not knowing to what in advance? Not being prepared for or braced against something. Just the openness of a relaxed body-mind. not eager to store, to remember, to grab on, to have it or get something. If that mode is in operation, can one hear it, feel it, see it, notice it? And in that openness of awareness, let go of it. What is said does not come out of a feeling of a separate person who talks to give you something or tell you something. We're looking at something together. We're talking about something together. Inquiring or questioning into something jointly. I don't feel separate from you in doing that. But you may see me separately as doing that and doing that. And if you do, why? Is there already image of Toni? What she is, what she does, what she has done, what she should do. What she reminds me of. One person told me in a recent retreat, it's incredibly hard for me to sit there during a talk because it just brings overwhelmingly to mind in early years having to listen on Sundays to the preacher. And much of what was said was frightening or guilt or anxiety arousing. And just so overwhelmed by it that the mind is not relaxed to listen. The mind is, if there is reminiscence of what was, that is surely going to distort what is being heard. And projects onto what one hears, what one has heard in the past. One may turn something completely around, make it into the opposite, and feel sure that this is what one has heard. Because this is what one has always heard at crucial times where we're very sensitive and vulnerable. So what is that state of relaxed, open listening, not to something, but listening together? And looking, wondering at the same time whether what is said is actually so. Looking for oneself as one listens to what it is that is being talked about. Because what is talked about is not abstract or theoretical, even though it may sound this way. It usually does not and cannot direct itself toward personal case history. We all, each one of us, has a personal case history of our life, which is not the same in two individuals on this whole globe, any time in the past or present. It's never been exactly the same history for any one of us, personally. But if one doesn't get stuck in the particular content of our past experiences, then we're all very much alike, whether we're here in this room or living any place on this earth, at any time in the present or past. Almost all human beings have this sense of separateness, I-ness, me-ness. And therefore wanting to attach to something, not to feel separate, to some kind of a larger unit. The fear of being separate, the fear of isolation, the fear of the possibility of being abandoned or already feeling abandoned. The tremendous, physically palpable ache of loneliness. Fear of what it will lead to, what will come of it. The urge to have one's own way, to get what one needs. And anger or rage or disappointment if one doesn't get what one needs or wants. Happens in a tiny baby already, although we may interpret a lot. Baby screaming. Maybe for food, but maybe it's not the food. Food doesn't satisfy us. Screaming continues. And the parents saying, she's mad. She's like her father or like her mother. As you see, we interpret, we project something onto this little baby, the fact as baby screaming. But there may be something that will stop the screaming. And the baby learns what to scream for, what the responses are, what will have what consequences. It's universal. Wanting something, needing something, and the emotions, whatever name we give them, when one is thwarted, does not get one's way, what one needs or wants. What we're doing right now is listing what is universally true of all human beings. Wherever one comes in touch with people or sees what people are doing, we have more and more media information. Films taken all over the globe, and not just stage settings, but often very natural settings. Sorrow is universal in all human beings. We talked about it yesterday, briefly. Sorrow, suffering, from not having what one needs or wants. The need may be food and warmth. It may be companionship, love. And the sorrow of lacking that. The violence that our sorrow leads to, our anger leads to. Getting by force what we need or want. this whole system of revenge, retaliation for hurt sustained is so universal. Look at what is going on in any country, in any war, in any strife or terrorism or family argument. Power struggle. Who wins? Who will be humiliated, feel humiliated if the other gets the upper hand, and then the urge for revenge, retaliation on a gross or very subtle level, maybe just subtle verbal. We're not saying this to paint a bleak picture of human beings, but to look at ourselves. Because this is what we're talking about, ourselves. Not people in distant lands or who have psychological problems. We all have psychological problems. And what is being talked about here, even though it is not specific and personal, is universal. If anyone disagrees, please let us look at it in a meeting where we can start from the beginning. Looking at it, not with what is it, the word? Have no presuppositions. You may say, well, you're establishing a lot of presuppositions. I'm not. I'm looking, and it's open to everybody to look. If one disagrees or sees something different, let's start from scratch and look at it together from scratch. What we started from here was that what is talked about is not abstract and theoretical, but it is for each one of us to see what it means in our personal life. How what is being talked about actually functions in our day-to-day living, maybe in our day-to-day, moment-to-moment fantasy. Because a great part of the time we live in fantasy. Does one realize that? And the total separation of fantasy from what is actually going on. And the difficulty of seeing what's actually going on if one is sticking or clinging to fantasy of what should be going on, what one wants to be, what one wants others to be like. Actually, to see something in oneself, greed for something. The word is just used descriptively, and one doesn't need to use it if one observes in oneself this tremendous outpouring energy to have something and more of it, and to keep it or hoard it, hold on to it, and then some more of it. If this is observed and seen, instantly as it happens, not reflected upon in retrospect, but seen as it happens, as one approaches maybe the pot of food. Maybe it's going down. Still quite a number of people ahead of one. If it's directly undiscovered, there's a tremendous relief in any kind of seeing of what is true. But we usually, something is seen and immediately it is reacted to as being bad, embarrassing, or justifiable. So the instant of clarity or insight is washed over by habitual reactions. Can one catch that? It takes tremendous attention and energy. Not the energy of brawn, which one works up in a health spa, but interest. And the interest being fueled from having observed often in retrospect in the past of how one behaves and the consequences of that, and how one later feels bad about it, feels guilty, wants to make amends, feels isolated because one has hurt someone, and now the fear of not being in the good graces of this person, not being liked. One has observed this over and over again, and one can observe it in one's own life and the life of everyone around one. Then there comes a real strong interest to catch something as it happens, not after the whole thing has spilled into reaction and counter-reaction and emotions, and to see it as it germinates, a hurt, a feeling of being hurt, insulted, not given one's way, and the anger that wants to rise, to see it. Not do anything with it. It's not necessary. It doesn't need to be reacted, taught for or against. That's all extra. Seeing needs nothing, just what is. If the anger has already spilled all over, anger is an inundating emotion. Every cell of the body seems to be part of it. Then what? Every fiber of the body wants to give it expression, because there's great satisfaction in it, pleasure in it, expressing anger, particularly if it's been held down for a long time, maybe for years, decades. And I'm not saying it is right or it is wrong to express anger. Can one observe? And is it possible, as anger is being expressed, to really be fully attentive to this strange phenomenon that sets the whole body, mind on fire? Tremendous energy. Same with fear. Pain of having been hurt, which is often situated right in the chest, near the heart. Tightness in the breathing area. What is one to do with all of that? In last retreat, somebody told me the moment I sit down, was in another place, retreat away from here. The moment I sit down, this hits me. Here, there. Pressure, pain, tightness, blockage, name it what you will. Person said, I thought I'd come to this retreat. I've heard it as a quiet, mild, gentle retreat, but here it is. Yeah. What am I to do about it? Says the person. What are we to do about it? With these states we find ourselves in, which have been triggered by thought and memory, idea, image, and yet here it is there, physical, ablaze. And not necessarily pleasant, because we don't have this problem when we feel pleasantly aroused. We don't say, what am I going to do with this? Then the savoring of it goes on. Can one look? Question whether this response, what am I to do with this, is already a habit, a habitual approach to everything. What am I going to do about this problem or that problem? About him or her or the children or the husband or wife? The job? What am I going to do about it? Which is what? The mind moving in a, let's call it a problem-solving channel, away from the problem. Do you see that? Here, the pain in the chest or wherever the pain may be or not, can't hit everybody's personal pain, but there's pain. Physical and psychological, intermingled pain in human beings, particularly if one begins to sit still, including the pain of numbness, the discomfort of feeling totally numbed, not feeling anything, and the agony of that. Can one see that the thought, what am I going to do about it, takes one away from that one wants to do something about? And creates a separation? An ignoring, a denying, or segregating off into unawareness of what causes the thought, what am I going to do about it? And being busy with that. Why is it so hard, so difficult to completely, unconditionally be with something that's there, or to allow that to do its thing without directing it in any way, without resisting it, without wallowing in it, without trying to explain it analytically where it came from? Nothing, just that. with a lightness that does not trivialize what's going on, but doesn't try to solve it by separating or segregating it. Letting it be without making a nice new program out of this letting it be. It's not a doing, it's a not doing. Not doing meaning nothing. Just what's there, including the rustling of the clothes or limbs here, the running of the furnace. Occasional audible breathing. There may be wind outside, there isn't right now. Maybe a distant car. Can all of that coexist without existing as a thing? As something reacted to, approached with like or dislike. Just everything being there and moving on its own, changing, becoming stronger or weaker, what of it? Just this relaxed openness that we talked about at the very start of this talk here. The openness of listening without having an opinion. Without predicting what this will become or turn into, this pain, which takes memory. Takes the memory. Last time it got worse. But that's memory. Can that be seen instantly? And memory is not this here. What is this here when I don't know it? These words you've heard before. But can it actually be felt this way? This wondering without knowing. Not her words, but the actuality of open listening and whatever's revealed in it, without identifying it as this or that, mine or yours. That's already that path away from what is, to say this is my problem, my pain, my responsibility, I brought it about. It's thinking about it. And thinking about something is not that something actually as it is. Do you see that? These knots, painful knots in the chest or wherever they may appear, have developed over a long time, have their history. being reinforced in each new place where one is working, trying to get something. This particular person told me, I've been for 10 years trying to get enlightenment. And the disappointment, the resentment about not getting it, and doing this back-breaking work of sitting, retreat after retreat. The anger, the rage over disappointment, all settling in some kind of a physical cramp. Always trying something new to get it or to get out of something. And never with the old, with what's there, which isn't really old if we really look. We've never looked at something new, unknown, allowed to be there as an effect of many causes, but not becoming a new cause for new anger, new frustration. Just there. Its history in this relaxed openness will reveal itself. It may come up in a remembrance, in a dream. Let it come up, but not make anything out of it. The maker out of it, the doer, the interpreter being quiet. Is that possible? Letting this whole stream of consciousness, physical, mental, reveal itself. Observing it like one does observe a stream. But not judging, not wanting anything out of this observation. Then there's division, separation, and a new ingredient to this heartache, conflict. That's part of this relaxed openness. It is the absence of conflict with whatever there is, may it be as fearful, painful, upsetting. Incriminating. Allowing it to be there and flow. With no escape. Into what am I going to do about it? Because the doer is that whole thing. That's the doer. There's no one separate from all of what is being observed, what comes into awareness. That is what one is. Saying that may be a step away, but it's a fact. And this totality of consciousness, the fears, the pains, the wanting out, the judgment, the resistance, anger, wanting love, wanting to be loved. It's not our personal ways, it's universal. We participate in this ocean. We're the manifestation of it, each one of us. If that is seen, if that is clear, then this whole burden of identifying with all that one feels and sees gives way to just seeing for what it is, Not the guilt, this is me, and I'm worse than him or her. This is anger, human anger, and not the word, the actuality of it. And the listening to that not being separate from what is there. And one doesn't have to project onto others or blame others. One sees the commonness of how we live and suffer and want out, and how we go about it, and the frustration of that. Never stopping to look and listen, without knowing a way out. Listen. We will end here for today.